Sorry, I was involved in heated discussion, interesting discussion with our Minister. Good morning and welcome all. As you know, if you've been here before, you will be very welcome. And then a special welcome to Clan Cahoon for swelling our numbers, and especially to Fergus and Rachel, to whom we add congratulations on their recent marriage. They're looking forward to meeting you after the service, and as an inducement, part of the wedding cake is here. So I hope you will gather around. For the session, reminder that we meet on the 27th at 7 o'clock. That is quite a big agenda, but I hope we get through it in time. On the 1st of October, and I won't be here, there is a stewardship committee meeting at 1:30 in the Heritage Room for both sessions. So Erica will be there as well. So that is a very important one. Finally, Argyll and Bute, having given ridiculously short notice for a further consultation on their traffic proposals in Luss, have called a meeting on the 3rd of October at 6:30 in the Village Hall. I recommend as many of you can go as possible and appeal against them, because they're simply not paying any attention to the previous consultation. And traffic and its relationship to the church's activities are quite critical.
Donald, if I may give my apologies for Wednesday night for the session meeting. I know people who are shrewd will say it's because Celtic are playing Anderlecht that I won't be there, but that's not the case. I have American friends, and so I should be with them. Later on, when meeting with Rachel and Fergus, I hope to persuade Fergus to write a book, because he is on record in saying that marriage is a doddle. So I'm looking forward that a book be written and you share your secrets, sir. Because the rest of us who are married need them badly. A missive from John Christie, which is not so positive, I've got to say, but he advises that the interim ministry's task group consider the application for interim ministry for Dumbarton Presbytery, and of course for Luss and Aricha. I have to advise that the task group was not able to approve the application in the format submitted, whatever that might mean, as it did not meet the application criteria. I will provide feedback on the reasons for the decision in early course, and I think that's when he gets them. No feedback has arrived yet, but I have asked to meet with the Presbytery Clerk. We'll keep you in the loop. Now, I will say here, as I said to Aricha, I was going to say that's the good news. The bad news is that you will have me for some time further. Now, I must also tell you that what I said was actually a test, because in Aricha that was greeted by applause. Thank you very much. There we are. Well, on this morning when it's kind of dreich outside, it's nice to have smiles on our faces as we worship God as we do now. Let us worship God as we sing together. We plough the fields and scatter the good seed on the land. Sorry about that. Can you please be upstanding? I failed again. Betty also informed me I've forgotten the people in the internet, so a very, very warm welcome to you today on a very dreich day in Luss. Let's worship God. Plough the field and scatter. Speak to God in prayer. Let us pray. Loving God, our Heavenly Father, we come here this day to give you thanks and praise you and celebrate your goodness to us. We come with thanksgiving. We come with joy. We come with wonder, reminding ourselves of the richness of your creation and acknowledging your faithfulness in providing for our needs and indeed far beyond. We praise you for the beauty of the seasons. We praise you for the constant cycle of day and night. And we praise you for the vital gifts of rain and sunshine, for the miracle of growth, for the wonder of life, and the incredible variety of harvest. We bring today our thanksgiving and ask that you receive then our worship, accept later our offerings, bless our celebration, and fill us with thankfulness for all you've given. You have blessed us beyond our deserving. We ask you to hear us now as we say in the words that Jesus himself taught us, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
The first reading is from Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 7 to 18. The Lord your God is bringing you into a fertile land, a land that has rivers and springs and underground streams gushing out into the valleys and hills, a land that produces wheat and barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives and honey. There you will never go hungry or ever be in need. Its rocks have iron in them, and from its hills you can mine copper. You will have all you want to eat, and you will give thanks to the Lord your God for the fertile land that he has given you. Warnings against forgetting the Lord. Make certain that you do not forget the Lord your God. Do not fail to obey any of his laws that I am giving you today. When you have all you want to eat and have built good houses to live in, and when your cattle and sheep, your silver and gold, and all your other possessions have increased, be sure that you do not become proud and forget the Lord your God, who rescued you from Egypt, where you were slaves. He led you through that vast and terrifying desert, where there were poisonous snakes and scorpions. In that dry and waterless land, he made water flow out of solid rock for you. In the desert, he gave you manna to eat, food that your ancestors had never seen. He sent his hardships on you to test you, so that in the end he could bless you with good things. So then, you must never think that you have made yourselves wealthy by your own power and strength. Remember that it is the Lord your God who gives you the power to become rich. He does this because he is still faithful today to the covenant that he made with your ancestors. Thanks be to God.
Let's remain seated and sing together the hymn Autumn Days, a hymn probably sung in many of the schools around the area, a children's hymn. Autumn Days when the grass is due.
Second reading is taken from Luke chapter 17, reading verses 11 to 19. As Jesus made his way to Jerusalem, he went along the border between Samaria and Galilee. He was going into a village when he was met by 10 men suffering from a dreaded skin disease. They stood at a distance and shouted, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." Jesus saw them and said to them, "Go and let the priests examine him." On the way, they were made clean. When one of them saw that he was healed, he came back praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself to the ground at Jesus' feet and thanked him. The man was a Samaritan. Jesus spoke up. "There were 10 who were healed. Where are the other 9? Why is this foreigner the only one who came back to give thanks to God?" And Jesus said to him, "Get up and go. Your faith has made you well." Thanks be to God.
In the last hymn we sung about not forgetting to say thank you, and obviously what Donald has read, 9 in fact did just that. I got an email this week from a fellow in Kenya, and it was full of thanksgiving. I met him some 15 years ago when I was over there, of all things, to conduct a wedding, and we went on a safari, and Peter Kamanga was our guide, a lovely man. And at the end of it all he said, "I noticed in your passport that you were a reverend. Would you come and see our church, which is going to open? We've just finished the building of it." And along I went, and here was this church. It was kind of like a barn, really, and there were putting seats out. And I said, "When is the opening?" "Tomorrow." My goodness. And I said, "How many do you expect?" "Oh, 4,000. I mean, it wouldn't have held 400. And whenever I said anything, he said, "But it's all right. Everything will be fine." And that was always his attitude. Well, at the end of it, Joan had some dollars in her purse, and she handed them over, and they were very, very grateful, and said, "We're going to buy a Clavanova." When I come back, I told the folks in Bonhill about Peter Kamanga. And at the end of the service, a lady said, "We're moving to England. There's a Clavanova in our house. You can have it if you can get it to Kenya." And of course I told Kamanga, and he said, "Thanks be to God. God has provided us with a Clavanova." And I thought, yeah, but God hasn't got it from here to Kenya. And he's left me with that job. So I made some phone calls, and I was getting nowhere. And eventually, in absolute desperation, I phoned Alan Grant, and Alan called and said, "Alan, can you help me? How can tell me somebody that might take this so I can get a price?" And he said, "Just bring it into Dumbarton." I said, "What's the point of bringing it into Dumbarton? It's going to be lying there. It's as well lying in the church." "No," he said, "Bring it, I'll get it to Kenya." "How much will it cost?" "Oh," I said, "You leave that up to me." Of course, when I told Kamanga, he said, "Well, I told you." The Lord had an answer. But as I say, it left me with the heavy end. Well, anyway, it got there. But about 2 years ago, he emailed me and said, he's always upbeat. And he said, things were not so good for him, but the Lord had a way out of it all. He had some genetic kidney disease and was hoping for a transplant. Well, about 2 or 3 months ago, he said he was hoping to go to India for the transplant. And the church was raising money, and Bonhill and some other folks I know managed to send some money over. And he's got the transplant. His daughter gave him a kidney, and he's full of thanks. And tell the people of Scotland, I think he thinks that we had a whip round in the entire of Scotland to send some money out there. But he's always full of thanks. Thanks to God, thanks to anyone who helps him. An absolute inspiration. So he's definitely the one in the 10, the other 9 who did not come back. Let's sing together that great hymn, O Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder, how great thou art. Summer for me in the village of Kilbarton where I grew up meant one thing, and that one thing was the farm. I would descend on Capside Farm and plagued the life out of Hugh and Jim Blair, the farmers. For my friends and I, that was heaven. Jumping in the hay loft was better than any trampoline. Sliding down the haystacks was better than any chute. And riding in the back of a trailer, bringing the hay ricks back to the farm, with our legs dangling over the edge, was better than any fairground ride. I have fond memories of those days. Taking the hay in was always fun, as a rope was tied around the haystack and slowly winched aboard the flat trailer, and we watched as myriads of mice flew from their place of safety, often chased by Sheila, the farmyard dog. Special days. If Ian Miller, aged 10 or 11, had been asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? There was one answer: a farmer. So where did it all go wrong? As I grew older, I realised there was more to this farming business than being out in the fresh air on a warm summer day. You see, we got them back in the mid-50s, the warm summer days. I realised that the cows had to be milked, probably 4 or 5 in the morning. Bad enough getting out of a warm bed in the summertime, but with frost on the ground, with driving rain, it suddenly didn't seem to be so inviting. As a child, I didn't know about field harvest. I didn't know about anything about the economics of running a farm, but for that period in my life, it was the perfect job. And it's not so long ago that in every church, up and down the land, there would be a harvest thanksgiving. The young farmers used to come regularly to Bonhill, a great bunch they were. And I still love to sing those hymns and think back to a time when the harvest was a cause for rejoicing. Today, if the harvest were to fail, then we know that Morrison's or Asda will provide. But it was not always so. I now realise that worry and uncertainty must often have been the lot of the farmer or the shepherd. There's people here in Lust that know that. Maybe we don't have these worries today. Maybe we've replaced them with other worries. I want to talk about gratitude today. We are a little more removed from the uncertainty of harvest, but it's right to be thankful for the food that comes to our table. Fresh out of university, a young man answered an advert looking for a business, looking for an accountant. He was interviewed by someone who ran a small business that he had started himself. And the man said, I need somebody with an accountancy degree. I'm looking for someone to do my worrying for me. Excuse me, said the accountant. Yes, I worry about a lot of things, but I don't want to have to worry about money. Your job will be to take all my money worries. I see, the young fellow said. And how much does the job pay? Well, I'll start you at 80,000 a year. 80,000 a year, said the young student. How can a small business pay that? The businessman said, well, that's your first worry. Good God, you won't get anything. That's your first worry. The word worry comes from an old Anglo-Saxon word meaning to strangle or to choke. I suppose it's like driving a car with one foot in the accelerator and another on the brake. The wheels are spinning, there's a lot of rubber burning, but you're not going anywhere. Jesus gave some wonderful advice about living and about worrying. Don't worry about what you will eat, he said. Don't worry about what you will wear, he said. Look at the birds of the air, look at the flowers of the field. Do they worry? Of course they don't, he said. Let's be grateful for what we have. On this Sunday, when we've sung those wonderful harvest hymns, we should be thinking of all those things that we are grateful for. And you know, gratitude, I believe, is the perfect antidote to worry. Remember the film Daddy Longlegs? Long time ago. The story of a young girl in the orphanage, befriended by a person she doesn't know. He doesn't reveal his identity. She passes through her childhood years, all the way to university, pursuing opportunities provided by this friend, whose name she does not know. One day she happens to meet him. She doesn't recognise him. He does not look like she had imagined. Finally, she learns his identity and loves him. Is that not a parable of our lives? We can all think of the times when God has blessed our lives, and sometimes we look back and we realise how blessed we've been. And that is why it is good to give God thanks for the harvest. In many ways, gratitude is a matter of perspective, I suppose. When Robinson Crusoe was wrecked on a lonely desert island, he drew up 2 lists. One was good and one was bad. He was on a desert island, but he was still alive. He had no clothes, but he was warm. He didn't have company, but he wasn't starving. He had no means to defend himself, but there were no wild beasts in any case. And God had sent a ship so near the shore that he could get all of the things he needed for his basic needs. Robinson Crusoe could be grateful, even although he was on a desert island. The wee boy was asked to say grace before dinner. And the family bowed their heads in expectation, and they began his prayer, and they thanked God for everything. For all his friends, for his mum, his dad, his granny, his grandpa, all his aunts and uncles. Then he began to thank God for the foods, for the chicken, for the fruit salad, for the ice cream. And then he paused, and everyone waited and waited. And after a long silence, he looked up at his mum and said, "But if I thank God for the broccoli, he'll know I'm lying." And many people are really grateful for what they have. 1 in 10 is maybe just about right. Jesus, as we heard today, was making his way to Jerusalem. His journey took him through Samaria. And as he entered the village, he was met by 10 men who were lepers. And they were at a distance, and they cried out for help. Why did they keep their distance? Well, as we know that everyone who suffered from leprosy was cut off from their family, cut off from society, even cut off from their church. They were the living dead. They were not allowed to live a normal life. And you and I have difficulty relating to that, don't we? No matter what illness befalls us, we will not be cut off from those who love us. For many years, I think maybe AIDS victims could have been seen as modern day lepers. They were kept at a distance. I reckon today many homeless people who sleep in the doorways of Glasgow may also know what it's like to be lepers. Take it a stage further. Am I wrong in thinking that some people with certain handicapping conditions or disfigurements may also suffer the sense of being isolated or excluded? What about the young boy or the young girl at school who decides that he or she is gay? In our mind's eye, we see lots of people standing afar off, left out of mainstream society. Those 10 men with leprosy would not have come close to Jesus. They would have been fearful. If only they had understood who he was, they would have come gladly. Jesus had many ways of healing people in the Bible. For the blind man, he uses mud. For Lazarus, he simply calls him. Sometimes he touched people. Sometimes he just spoke to them. In this case, he did none of these things. Instead, he told them to go to the priest. He asked them to take a risk. For you see, they were not supposed to go near other people, and they were unclean, and that certainly meant especially they would not go near the holy people, those who were set apart, the priests. And so these men were running a risk by approaching the priest. Maybe Jesus didn't heal them immediately. Maybe he was asking them to take a step of faith. He was asking them to act as if they were healed and regain their place in society. What is it that Jesus said to the fellow? Your faith has made you whole. But only one come back. Only one thinks it's important to say thanks. Where were the other 9, you may well ask? I don't really know. Maybe one wanted to see if the cure was real. Maybe one wanted to know if it would last. Maybe one said he will see Jesus later. Maybe one even decided he didn't have leprosy in the first place. I don't know. I reckon maybe one figured he was going to get well anyway. Maybe one thanked the priest. Maybe one said any rabbi could have done it, and I don't know what Jesus did in any case. I doubt that as many as 10% of us are really ever grateful to God. In fact, it seems sometimes the more we have, the less grateful we are. I came upon a story recently that I thought just said it all. I'm told it's true. It was in the paper, so it must be true. Carol was a decent soul, and she wanted to do something nice for her new neighbour. We'll call her Mrs. Smith, so she baked a cake, and I'm sure this happens in less often. She carried it next door, and when Mrs. Smith opened up the door, she was surprised to see Carol holding the cake, and she said, "For me? How lovely. How kind of you. What a lovely gesture. Now, because Mrs. Smith had liked the cake so much, Carol decided the next week to make her a pie this time. And when she took it over, Mrs. Smith opened the door and said, "Thank you very much, you are so kind." When she took another pie the following week, Mrs. Smith simply said, "Oh, thanks." The following week, when she popped over, Mrs. Smith said, "You're a day late with that pie." Undeterred, she baked another pie. This time her neighbour said, "Try using a little more sugar. Don't bake it for quite as long, and the crust has been a bit hard lately, and I'd like cherry rather than apple." The next week, Carol was busy and she didn't have time to bake, so she passed by Mrs. Smith's window on the way to shop, and Mrs. Smith called out the window, "Where's my pie? I'm told it's true." But how easy we can take things for granted. So easy to get used to our blessings. After enjoying them for a while, we begin to think we deserve them. Then instead of being thankful, we start complaining. It's a process that starts slowly, doesn't it? Even we don't realise it's happening. People who expect the world to cater to them can never be grateful. People who cannot be grateful are never happy. Gratitude leads to contentment. Contentment goes hand in hand with inner peace and joy. Only one of those 10 men that Jesus healed was grateful. He returned to give Jesus thanks. You know, I often think, if I wake up one morning and with some perverse thing has happened to me and I find myself an atheist, my faith gone, do you know the thing I would miss most than anything else? Having someone to thank. Never being able to say in a moment of exhilaration or happiness or even distress, or even standing outside and looking at the majesty of God's creation, not being able to say, "God, thank you." It is said of Rudyard Kipling that every word he wrote was worth 25 shillings. Some Oxford undergraduates got wind of this and they wrote him a letter. This is true. And the letter said, "Dear Mr. Kipling, we understand that every word you write is worth 25 shillings. Enclosed are 25 shillings. Please send us your best word." Rudyard Kipling sent back the perfect response, a one-worded telegram, which read, "Thanks." You may be right. Thanks may indeed be the best word of all. God bless us as we give God thanks for the many things that sometimes we take for granted. For the fruits of all creation, thanks be to God. Heavenly Father, it's good to say thank you, and we do so today. And out of gratitude, we return these gifts which we ask you to bless. We thank you for this season. We thank you too for all those to whom we owe this harvest. And today we remember those who do not celebrate. Perhaps the harvest is poor or non-existent. Perhaps there is insufficient resources to tend their land. We think of them. Help us as we celebrate our plenty to remember those who have so much less, the poor and the needy of our world, driven by famine, disaster, or war to the brink of starvation. Help us to respond with love and concern. Speak to us then, Father, at this harvest time, so that our hearts may be stirred, our conscience quickened. Help us to share our bounty with those who have nothing, so that the time may one day come when all have enough and none too much. Lord, you have blessed us richly. Teach us to remember others. In the name of Jesus, hear these our prayers. Amen. Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. and forevermore. Please be seated.